welcome to a new episode of the Roald Dahl Retrospective. I am Patricia.
My name is Arun.
And with us today, we have Eli, a.k.a. the hero of tomorrow. So welcome back, Eli.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Yeah, so it's been 2 years since we did the Roald Dahl Retrospective.
Yeah, the last time I think we spoke about Wonka, and well, this was the movie actually we saw twice because we loved Timothée Chalamet's performance so much, and yeah, it was great. And also we saw a bunch of friends in Alabama as well, so shout out to them.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about the 2025 animated film that is exclusively on Netflix called The Twits, and it's done by Jellyfish Pictures, which unfortunately is no longer here, considering that they recently shut down, and they actually did several animated movies, one of which we actually talked about a few months back, which was Dogman for Dream Machine.
Yeah, and so it's kind of amazing, really, because you and I, well, maybe it probably wasn't so amazing because you and I sat in the theater watching Dogman all by ourselves. And to be fair, I think this was like later, like into like the theatrical release timeline. So I don't know if the box office bang had like faded by then, I guess for that. But given the fact that now they no longer exist now, and this is going to be basically their swan song to the movie industry, I think I think we need to talk about this a little bit, really.
Yes.
So see what their legacy actually is going to be.
That's kind of sad, considering that I really like Dogman, and my thoughts on this movie were kind of the opposite.
Oh boy.
Really? I with Dogman, I was still a bit. I think I remember being a bit mixed about it. If I remember our Dream Machine episode.
Did even more than Captain Underpants.
Well, because I didn't understand Captain Underpants because I never grew up with Captain Underpants. But Dogman is like a separate project. I did like more than Captain Underpants because of that. Because obviously it exists well as its own separate thing. And also it has some very good callbacks to other sci-fi movies like RoboCop, The Terminator, things like that. Yeah. And so I feel like Dogman was far better put together than Captain Underpants was. But that's just me.
All right then. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about this adaptation of The Twits, which was based off of a 1980 children's novel of the same name. And what an interesting adaptation this was, and what an interesting book that they decided to make an adaptation of, which is basically about these two people named Mr. and Mrs. Twit, who in the first half they just basically pulled off a bunch of pranks with one another, and in the second half it's basically a bunch of monkeys known as Mugglewumps teaming up together with the roly-poly bird because they were being abused by the Twits, and so they decided to pull off pranks on their own, one of which involves with them being hung upside down after putting glue on them, and in the end they pretty much just shrunk into nothing.
Yeah, and it's funny because the Twits, I remember being like one of my favorite Roald Dahl books growing up, and so I just remember how the pranks that they pulled on each other, and to the point where they're probably nearly killing each other with all sorts of like hijinks, and you sort of have to kind of suspend your disbelief a little bit that this is a couple that somehow work together in some sort of way, and but yet they still utterly despise one another, and to the point where they will like do all sorts of horrible things with one another. It's kind of like what would happen if Home Alone basically had no rules, I think, and the people who were trying to do horrible things within the house were actually a married couple who actually owned the house. Right. So I think that's kind of the best way I could describe to a layperson what the Twits actually was, but there's probably a better way of describing it, I think.
Sure.
I read the book as a kid, and then just before when I was told that I would be on this podcast, I decided to listen to the audiobook to refamiliarize myself with it, and I was like, wow, this kind of doesn't really get started until about halfway through.
True. It doesn't, yeah.
It's the Twits book more kind of like just explains what the world is before it starts trying to get into the actual story itself, which is like obviously which is we're going to talk about obviously within the movie, because obviously that's sort of kind of like the narrative of like the final act of the book sort of like takes over like the whole thing.
Sure.
So
my expectations a bit colored because, well, knowing what we know now about Dahl and his unfortunate anti-Semitism, I thought for a second, because I read the book as a kid, like, oh, are the Twits like Jewish stereotypes? But then I went back and I was like, no, not really. If Dahl hated anybody when writing this book, it was people with beards.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Apparently, the
I
whole
think if
reason
Roald
he
Dahl was gonna basically go that far with his characters, I think we probably would see some really more awful stereotypes than I think we would do with, Mr. and Mrs. Twit, to be honest with you.
Yeah, like apparently the whole reason that Dahl wrote this book in the first place was because he had an acquaintance that had a son with a really thick beard, and he was like, "Oh, that must be a bitch to clean." And
Yeah,
he
Michael
and that's
Rosen, to be specific. Yeah. So he actually knew Michael Rosen way back because they're both children's authors. And so it turns out that when he found out that his son, Rosen's son, had like this beard, he was like thinking to himself, oh man, like all the stuff that can get stuck into your beard. It's like, maybe I should write a character like that. And that's how we got the Twits.
Yeah, you know what? We actually tried to get Michael Rosen on the show, and unfortunately, his manager turned us down.
Oh,
So,
that's a
like,
shame. That would have
yeah,
been
but if Michael Rosen, if you're listening, we would still like to have you on a casual chats one day.
Michael Rosen, YouTube poop icon.
I gotta be honest with you. I think that probably if we brought that up, I think he would just put the phone down immediately. I
Yeah.
think I only saw one video where he actually like said hello to the YouTube poop community, but as far as I'm aware, he's never addressed it since.
Oh wow. But I mean, then again, with Roald Dahl, it's not to be surprised. I mean, this is the same guy who, when he was told an idea from Lissy Doll about like, hey, why don't we make a cookbook based off of all of the food that was featured in the books? He looked at her, like really seriously said, I'd rather be dead than fat. And literally, the Revolting Recipes book didn't come out until after his death, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah,
he got
he
his
had
wish.
his quirky ways, to put it lightly.
I was just gonna say, well, he got his wish. But
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Anyway, but yeah, so this movie, yeah, I mean, this movie was directed by Phil Johnson, who worked on Zootopia, Wreck-It Ralph, and Ralph Breaks the Internet.
And by the way, everybody, when in the comment section, if you're wondering when we're going to talk about Wreck-It Ralph and Zootopia, Wreck-It Ralph, we're going to have to let you know on, but Zootopia, just watch this space. There is going to be an announcement about that soon.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, this is something that I've been hearing about for the past couple of years. I mean, ever since the Roald Dahl Story Company teamed up with Netflix, they were talking about like all of these projects that they were working on, and one of them was the Twits. And apparently, from what I read in an interesting article from IndieWire, that originally this was supposed to be a TV series, and Phil Johnson had written and storyboarded the first 8 episodes, but in 2022 it was like canceled completely. And there were several like really weird ideas of like what some of the episodes would have been. Like one episode would have been Mr. Twit as president. Another episode would have been about a parasite from Mr. Twit's beard and a parasite from Mrs. Twit's armpit fall in love with one another. There was even ideas of when the movie was going to be going into a different direction, that there were going to be kids or something. So yeah, there was a lot of behind the scenes things that were going on until we finally.
Which, goes back to the conversation. Why not just do the bloody book? Like, why? I mean, this is going to be. We don't even got into the movie yet, and already this is one of my annoyances with this project, which is like, why not just stick to the source material and reintroduce everybody to what this thing is? And then if you want to play around with it in later time, if it becomes successful, then do it. Yeah.
Talk about this movie, shall we? So. Yeah, like where do we start with a lot of the interesting changes that they decided to put into this? So yeah, Mr. and Mrs. Twit actually have a theme park called Twitlandia, and they're promoting it on television, and then it gets completely shut down and condemned because of multiple violations. And then we jump immediately over to focusing on these two kids named Beesha and Bubsy.
I mean, yeah. So what could possibly go wrong? Yeah, so I get what they're doing here. So we're here. We have Beesha Balti, and by the way, Balti is an Indian cuisine, just to let you all know. And you have Bubsy. I don't know what I can't remember, but was it Bubsy? What's his last name? Was it? I can't remember what it was. But they try to bring in these new characters who, by the way, these characters are not in the book.
Nope.
And actually, there's a lot of characters that have been introduced into this that are not in the book, and they not only have they completely missed the point of the book. I mean, like they sort of do callbacks to the book, but the way that they've done this, where they've introduced new characters, they've completely changed the story, and now it's about this theme park that gets condemned. The Twits take revenge on the city for basically condemning their theme park. Then we go through this kind of crazy thing where like there's a power struggle, and then they end up like running for mayor and end up taking control of the city, and then taking over the orphanage. orphanage, and we're trying to get the mother ones back because they've taken the mother ones. Can you see where this is going here? This is nowhere near where the original story was, and this feels more like a sequel more than it does feel like the actual Twit story itself.
Which is funny enough because there's actually an unofficial sequel to the Twits called The Twits Next Door that was released last year.
Yeah, funny enough, when I was younger, I came up with we had to do in school we had to do this writing class, and the Twits was kind of the thing at the time. So I basically wrote an idea of it's kind of like what you ever seen Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey?
Sure.
It's kind of like when the Twits have shrunk and now they're dead and now they're basically in the afterlife. So it sort of was kind of like that.
Sure. Yeah, so what are your thoughts on this movie, Eli?
See, I was less positive on the book than you were, Aaron. And in my opinion, I think the only memorable thing about the book is the way the Twits got killed. But even with that, I still don't think the movie was good. But I think it sucks in a different way than the book did.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's I don't know, I wouldn't say I've not read the Twits in a long time, I will admit. So maybe my childhood nostalgia probably blinds me a little bit really about what the project actually was. So I mean, I'll hold my hands up to that. But if you're asking if this movie gives any nostalgic value to what I read when I was younger, and did it give any callbacks? I mean, there were certain scenes that actually were in the book that made me feel oh wow, this is the thing that I read a long time ago. But that's only probably maybe 4-5% of the movie,
yeah.
And the rest of it is just I can't get myself attached to. I really can't. It's the one thing here on Old School Lane, the one thing that gives some of those things that we talk about value is the fact that we grew up with it, and we have an attachment to it, and so we have an attachment to these characters, to these stories, to the way that it all plays out. I mean, it's kind of hard to say the music and the everything like that, because I grew up also with the audiobook of the Twits as well, and the way that it was read out and the way that the music was done was also very, very good to put you in the situation. That some of the old if you get some of the old cassette tapes for the audiobooks, I would suggest you go track them down because they're hilarious. But nothing in this movie makes me feel like it calls back to that. It just feels oh wow, this thing is 2025, and it feels like a thing that's taking place right now in 2025, and that goes against it, unfortunately. And I'll probably later on in the podcast I'll explain why.
Okay, then, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it does kind of focus mostly on these young kids who, for the most part, you have Beesha, who believes that her parents are going to come back after she was dropped off in the orphanage, and then you have Bubsy, who's kind of the little side character who wants to go to Twitlandia because he saw it in a commercial. It looked like it was a lot of fun, and then they realize that it wasn't as good as it seemed, and then they meet up with the Muggle Wumps, which in the original they were real monkeys, but in this one they're magical monkeys that come from Lupa Land. It's oh, okay, so
I'm guessing now in the Roald Dahl cinematic universe there's 3 people have now gone to Lupa Land: Willy Wonka and the Twits.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, yeah. And I guess I know that they are kind of building up into this Roald Dahl cinematic universe at some point, as we saw with the purchase of the Roald Dahl Story Company with Netflix. I mean, they are planning on branching out with more projects. I mean, we're still waiting for that Taika Waititi Charlie and the Chocolate Factory animated series.
Yeah, well, I mean, right now we're not talking about that. We're talking about this.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in the meanwhile, yeah, I mean, it does go in an interesting direction where it goes into a little bit of social and political commentary involving with the Twits, convincing a whole bunch of people that with the opening of Twitlandia, this small town that they're living in is going to be rising back after the lake was dried up and tourism pretty much just went completely dead, and nobody is making a lot of money to make ends meet. And so they're hoping that with the opening of Twitlandia, they can be able to bring things back on track and make the town great again.
Yeah, you tell you what, Eli, can I ask you this question? Because obviously you're still in America right now, and we're here in the UK. Does this movie feel too real to you?
At some parts, yes. They were definitely... I don't know why they chose the Twits of all movies to make political commentary with, but I did sort of get vibes of the masses being easily led by promises of making their town great again and things like that. And I get it, But why in this movie?
Yeah, I know. And the worst thing about it is that now here's the thing about this. I'm pretty optimistic about the future for some strange reason, and I know a lot of other people right now are quite fearful about what's going on right now. But I'm hoping that as people start to come together and realize that things aren't right, and they're going to put them. I'm trying to be as very apolitical about this as I possibly can, but it's kind of hard because the movie kind of goes in that direction.
Well, I can tell
But
you the reason on why, but continue.
yeah, but here's the thing. I just think that hopefully somewhere down the line things are going to get better, and when they do, this movie will become very dated, and it'd be kind of like, oh wow, this is what we. Why is the movie kind of like this? And then we realize, oh yeah, this is kind of like what was going on during that time, and that's the reason why the movie is like this. And that's the thing, because I'm not saying that this movie doesn't have good messages, and I'm not saying that this movie doesn't have, is a good commentary on like what's going on right now with everything that's going on. I mean, there's going to be an Animal Farm, movie going to be coming out somewhere down the line. I believe, and so that's going to have some, commentary on like what's going on, in the present day. But I think this
Um,
whole thing of like, oh hey, this is what populism right now is doing to, modern society, and this is what it's doing to people who feel desperate and feel scared and feel worried about the future and things like that. I don't know, I'm hoping and praying that somewhere down the line, we're gonna look back at this in like 10 years and say, oh wow, this is what was going on during that time.
don't get me started on that Animal Farm movie because I've heard in interviews that they're like, "Oh, we're toning down the commentary a little bit to make it more palatable to audiences," and I'm like, "That's that you're missing the point of the
That's
story."
missing the point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Anyway, but let me explain to you on why they decided to go in this direction. And again, go check out that Indie Wire article if any of you guys are interested in checking it out. Yeah, so when discussing about the directions that they wanted to change into the story, this is what this is what Phil Johnson had to say about it. So since the original book was published, the world has gotten meaner and crueler. Specifically, he wants to explore how children can navigate a landscape where evil and corruption gets rewarded instead of punished by the adults around them. Quote, adults almost without exception, in Dahl's work are mean, stupid, ineffectual, L3 sometimes. I think it's empowering that kids realize that, hey, sometimes we do have the answers. When I wanted to do the film is to take a look at how people can get lured in by disgusting playground taunts. The Twits are so gross and puerile and nasty in the book, and I was thinking, what if they rose to power in the town? And I use this as a way to deal with some of the things we're looking at the world right now.
But that's not the book. That's the thing. You're going away from the source material. If you're gonna do a story like that, why do you have to bring the Twits into this? This doesn't have to be a Roald Dahl movie. It really doesn't. It could be its own thing. You could have put in original characters and done, a similar story that we could have said, oh, hey, this still has callbacks to the Twits. And, but, the fact that you've now dragged, this Roald Dahl project into this, it's kind of like, yeah, it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does really go into this direction, like towards most of the movie, in which you have this, excuse me, you have the debate going on between Mayor John and the Twits, and basically the Twits decide to point the blame over on Beesha when she, rescues the Mugglewumps from being in prison, because apparently when you turn them upside down, their tears are able to power up Twitlandia, which is an interesting choice. And also, when they cough up these stress ball things, they look like tribbles from.
Yeah, it's sort of like this is what they complained about Elsa being, being the problematic, in regards to being a Disney princess, because her powers aren't really all that well explained, and this kind of goes to the Muddlewumps as well. They say they come from Lumperland, so I guess they share the same territory as the Oompa Loompas. So and then they glow in the dark, and they do these sort of kind of weird sort of things, and apparently you can understand them if you're empathetic enough, but yeah, I mean, again, they're kind of like magical creatures. And by the way, they try their damnedest to try and create these kind of minion sort of kind of creatures. We are in an era right now where, we have rabbits, we have minions, we have all these little characters who just speak gibberish and just run around and act all crazy. And apparently that's going to be, a thing. that kids and anyone who wants to buy the merchandise for this thing is going to want to attach themselves to. It's like it's also kind of a bit of a sad reminder of like what era of movies we're currently in right now.
The problem right now is that video games are making so much more money than movies, and the studios are trying to rely on merchandise sales, and to do that they're trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator. So that means that a lot of mainstream kids movies are having those little characters that they're hoping will do well with kids. And honestly, all I got from the Mugglewumps in this movie is they're magical Furbies, basically.
Absolutely.
Oh my.
If when the next time we go to the Roald Dahl Museum, there's going to be a toy of the Mugglewumps. And they're going to
I've just thought of something. Hey, Eli, did you? I don't know if you're too young for this or not. Do you remember Bonsai Buddy? Like
I do.
The little annoying thing. Don't they kind of look like that in a way?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God. Gee.
Anyway,
I wasn't there for the actual
data. Look out.
Yeah,
anyway,
like I wasn't
also
there for the actual browser tool, but I have seen videos about it.
Oh
so.
yeah. Oh no. Well, I remember when in my early IT career having to uninstall that from every CEO's laptop. Good grief, it was awful because they all thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I also forgot to mention this movie is also a musical.
Which is weird because like we forgot to mention the movie's weird framing device, because it's told by apparently the story is being told by one of the fleas in Mr. Twit's beard to her son. And it's like, and at one point they're like, wait, and the son's like, wait, is this a musical? And she's like, what am I, a cricket? No. But that was a lie, because there are several songs after that.
Yeah, exactly. And so that makes absolutely no sense. In fact, they're doing this sort of, it's funny because this has the same people who made The Boss Baby out of this. And my goodness, the same type of cruddy storytelling is definitely told in this movie. Like, it's definitely got the Boss Baby's diaper rash in this movie.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, yeah, the music was done by David Byrne from Talking Heads, and I gotta be honest, I don't remember a single song from this.
No, all I remember is like them just like saying you in one of the songs, but that's not a song.
And what about that?
That's a meme.
Yeah, what about that lullaby song in which like it seemed like it's so innocent, but it's involving with like, oh, when you're awake, you're gonna be torn to shreds, and then when you're sleeping, everything is peaceful. It's like,
it's funny, like it kind of feels like they were trying to like do Avenue Q in that song, and like, but they kind of like missed the point of like what made Avenue Q funny, and so yeah, that sort of kind of just goes way over my head, when I was doing that. I've got to be honest with everybody. There were times in this movie that I knew how things were gonna go. I just got my phone out and started like flicking through and checking if Preston North End were winning against Southampton. I'm not kidding. Like I was more
kidding. By the way,
I was more intrigued with a soccer game going on in the south of the country. We're here in the north than I was, with a movie that was like, I would say like 3 feet in front of me.
We actually waited for this movie for several years now, and the fact that the movie turned out to be quite a disappointment, especially since we haven't heard any other Roald Dahl adaptations that are going to be happening anytime soon. I mean, no news about Taika Waititi's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Oompa Loompa spinoff, and I know there's supposed to be like buzz around like the Enormous Crocodile is going to be next or something like that, but yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything since, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have to wait a long while for this. And I'm just hoping that if we do hear news about another adaptation, I just hope that they'll actually take the time to understand what make Roald Dahl's source material so good.
I have to say, I don't know if you, Eli, if you agree with me on this, but I don't like the aesthetic of this movie, like the way that they designed our characters in this world. Like it's sort of kind of like a cross between Ren and Stimpy and Fanboy and Chum Chum. I don't know if you feel the same way about it.
Yeah, I didn't really like it all that much. In fact, it's kind of weird because they're I know y'all talked about Paranorman recently.
We did.
I did sort of get Paranorman vibes from the kids' character designs a little bit, if it were CG. But obviously Paranorman did it better.
Yeah,
but
well,
there,
the thing with
but
Paranorman was is that it was a Halloween movie, and the it was the way that Norman saw the world around him, whether it was like seeing the ghosts or whether it was like just how dreary and how how he feels about the real world, and that's you saw that through Norman's perspective. Like there was no perspective from this movie that people got besides children think that the world looks bad, and so I guess they sort of succeeded in that sense. But yeah, I agree with you, Eli. Paranorman did it way better
Yeah.
because
to
that was
circle back
what they were going for.
to circle back to a couple of points that y'all were talking about, like the one song that I kind of remember from this movie is the first song from the Twits, which I kind of remember it for the wrong reasons because like the whole point of that song is we're horrible, but we're the only people here that are actually free, and I'm like, you're not supposed to sympathize with the Twits, like.
Well, no, I think if anything, it's sort of like it's sort of like a comedic song where it's kind of like, oh well, we believe that we're the ones who are actually free. If anything, it's kind of like a sovereign citizens national anthem, if anything. But I mean, like, so like they feel like they can break the rules and they can do whatever the hell they want, and everybody else is trapped, and not realizing that people are not trapped because they want to be trapped because the reason why is because obviously the town is not doing very well, and they are just trying to get on with their lives. That's all they're trying to do. But like the Twits take it from a is like oh hey, we're the rules don't apply to us, we can just break them wherever we want, but obviously then there's consequences to that, as we see, because obviously the orphans find out get the evidence to say that they are the ones who basically caused all the chaos in the town, and then they get arrested.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I
Okay.
guess.
Yeah, I
Go
could
ahead.
see that, but like, and also like, I may be the only one, but I am super excited if they ever make an enormous crocodile movie, especially if it's one that's true to the book. I would love that ending to be made in animated form.
Oh, no, Eli. I think this movie is going to be. I think that movie will be like a dark comedy on the idea that Putin shouldn't be allowed to bomb Ukraine. So I think that'll basically be what that movie will be about. So no, don't get too excited about
Well, speaking of
If
the
this
ending,
movie
I
is
guess
anything to
we'll.
judge by, yeah.
that.
Well, speaking of the ending, I guess we'll have to talk about it. So, as in the original ending, yeah, the Twits basically are upside down and then they shrink to the point of being non existent, and then everybody rejoiced and moved on with their lives. Well, in this one, they go for the complete opposite, where they did look like it was going to be closer to the book, in which when the kids decide to, do what the Muggle Wumps and the Roly Poly Bird did originally, where they put the house upside down and then they decided to put the glue on their head and then they went upside down. And you would think, okay, well, we're done here. And then, maybe the kids will find their forever families and they'll be living happily ever after. But no, no. Then it turns out that they don't understand the Muggle Wumps because, they were not being empathetic to the Twits. And so they set them free. And then, of course, the Twits are still evil.
Yeah, of course.
Because they're
So,
like, look, we have to be better than them because but like, and it's like, but you've demonstrated that being better to them doesn't make the other side be better to you. Like
exactly. Yeah.
if we're
Yeah.
like
That's
if we're
such a.
if we're gonna do political commentary, you got it wrong.
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, like, it basically turned out exactly the way that we thought it was going to turn out. They let him go, and then all of a sudden they just turned evil again, and they just did whatever the hell they wanted. If anything, like, they probably, if the real way they should have probably told this was that, okay, you've got two choices. Either you can, because eventually, basically, they weren't really free from the situation. They were still out on bail for, like, the crimes that they committed during, that. So, I mean, obviously there was still that going on at the time. So they could have given an ultimatum like, you can stand on your heads and you can get shrink or whatever, or we can let you go and you can go to jail. and then you can face the punishment for all the crimes that you've done. And I think that would have been a better message to say, take responsibility for your actions, and stop being such a stupid idiot all the time.
Yeah.
And that would have been a better way to do. That would have been one thing better that they could have done with the character evolution with the Twit, is that they make him realize, look, you can't just you may think that you have these freedoms or whatever, but the actions that you have consequences. And so that's the thing about the bad guys, at the end, because at the end they all get arrested and they all go to jail because they committed all these crimes and they realize that being the bad guys is not worth it anymore, and it's not a way of life that they should be taking because they're ending up hurting a lot of people in the process, and they need to take responsibility for their actions, which they do at the end of the movie, and then they sort of move on until the bad guys too, unfortunately. So.
And then they made a sequel. But
yeah.
Yeah, and again, Phil Johnson actually has a response on why they decided to go with this ending, saying that the final moral he wanted kids to take away from this was, while you don't have to be naive, you don't have to stoop to the level of being the worst person in the world. Quote, it's kind of this idea that if you're a twit, are you really winning? If you behave like a twit, is it the right thing? There's a line in the film, it's so easy to hate someone, but if that's all you keep on doing in the world, then I don't know where we're going to end up. The ending is a choice, and I guess that's kind of how I want to live my life, because I found myself, as I was making the film, like so many things in the world were making me so pissed off, and it just became like, well, all right, if this is wish fulfillment, let's do something where we don't end up that way and hope our brighter angels will take over at some point.
You know what? I've got a really long response to that, but we're running out of time. So, yeah, we've only got like 2 minutes.
Get that when they go low, we go high bullshit out of here.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's. I tell you what, we'll end it on that, shall we?
Yeah. Let's end it on that.
Let's end it on that.
Final notes. Big disappointment.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't a particularly big fan of the book, but this movie was not good either. Like, it's just. I don't know why you would choose this book to be the intro to your big animated Roald Dahl universe, but like this wasn't it. Like, no. I know, like.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, Eli. We've got to wrap up. So.
Out of all the recent adaptations that we've seen where, the Roald Dahl Story Company took over, Wonka, Matilda the Musical, and this is probably the worst one that we've seen.
Yeah. All right, then.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry to end it on a sour note, but I guess with the Twits is appropriate. So, yeah, Eli, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eli.
Thank you for having me.
So, quickly, why don't you plug and promote your stuff?
You can find me on Blue Sky and Patreon and YouTube at The Hero of Tomorrow.
All right.
All right. See you later, guys.
All right, everyone, take care, and don't be a twit.
No. Bye-bye.
Bye.